So welcome to our next episode. Here we'll be creating a plucked patch. And the first question that you might ask yourself now is, what is the difference between a plucked patch and a lead? So you remember the lead was, like I said, something that you need to be able to play in quick sequences. It needs to be powerful, present, it carries the melody of your song. So a plucked patch kind of falls into the same direction, into the same kind of patch. It just sounds different. So if you pluck an instrument, you usually pluck on string instruments, something like a guitar, like a cello in the orchestra, a viola, a double bass, right? Or a Japanese koto. Things like this are plucked instruments. So the first thing that we want to do is to set up our envelopes to a pluck character. So first of all, we bring the filter down, make this louder a little bit, and adjust our envelopes. So we want to have a really short attack and a release that is have a little bit of tail. And then we want to apply our filter envelope to the cutoff, or envelope 2, like we did with the last patches, so that we have this effect. So before with the lead we had more attack, so that we could do something like this. Well, here we'll go for a really short attack, and you already hear this is way more clicky. It sounds like something being plucked. So this is the basic concept for a plucked patch. Now we need, of course, to adjust the release as well for the filter, how long it should fade out. Maybe a little bit less than the volume envelope. And then the decay, of course, it matters because if I play now this, filter will sound different if I do this. So the decay, I would just bring it to the same amount of volume value, because on a plucked instrument you can't really hold the string when you pluck it, right? You pluck it with your fingers like this, and then you can't hold it and make it sustain. This is not possible. I mean, this is a synthesizer and you could go for it, right? So you could go for it, could say, hey, Voider, I'm creating my own instrument. I want to be able to play something like this. It's totally fine. If this is something you want, go for it. You can create this. So there are no hardwired rules when you create your own patches. But for the sake of presentation of creating a real plucked patch, what we will be doing here is we will get rid of the sustain for the first time. That means that even if I hold down now a chord, it will disappear. This is a new behavior that we didn't have before. For plucked patch, I like it because sometimes when you play, you tend to hold down notes longer than you need, and if there's any amount of sustain, you will hear this, and it will take away the character of the pluckiness. So we will get rid of this. And this in the same time means that the decay button here becomes relevant for the first time, because if I hold down, you remember, the decay is active when you hold notes, while the release only is active when you release notes. So if the sustain is up, it doesn't matter, right? Because we always have the sound, no matter if I hold it or play short, we have always maximum volume. But you remember the decay is determined how long the volume travels from our maximum volume to a sustain value. So if the sustain value is 0, it will travel to that point, as long as we holding the keys. And since this is a pluck instrument, and like I said, we don't want this to happen, to have sustained sound, we will bring the decay to something short as well, even if I hold down. So make sure that your decay is not shorter than your release. which is now 600, around 600. So we need a similar value, because it could then happen that you hold down a note and it fades out too quickly. Now if I hold down, it sounds like this, and if I play it just quick, it sounds like this. Pretty similar, there's almost no difference, so this is fine. And it sounds plucky already. So let's now look what we can do to make this patch more interesting. So again, we can bring in oscillator 2. Maybe. Oh, should turn up the volume. Oh no. Of course I did. Sorry, I was just confused. I was looking at the volume button here next to it not being up, but it's really not audible. Okay, but it's there, okay. Maybe because our envelope is so short that we don't hear a lot of stuff. Maybe we can make this a little bit more audible. That's good so far. So our second, you hear this? There are some phasing issues. Oh yeah, of course, because I have. This is something interesting. It didn't mean to happen, but something that's really interesting for you maybe. Waveforms, they can kill each other, so sound disappears. This is happening when they have a special relationship to each other, which is called phasing. It will then make your sound disappear because they annihilate each other. And if we have a saw wave here and a saw wave reversed here, it seems that they sometimes annihilate each other. It's not happening so strong this time, but we just had it in the last one when I played it before. Okay, so now everything is fine. And then let's actually add modulation. And not to our first oscillator, only to a second. Because as you hear, what we hear, this is a little bit more, it sounds more realistic. Right? This sounds like plucking on an actual instrument. So, but I don't want this all the time. I want it only in this attack time with the filter together. So what we can do, we could now take envelope 2, which we have on our filter, and just let it do this for us. But as you can hear, it's already getting distorted a little bit. This is because even this little attack time of 0.3 and the decay time here, especially the decay, which determines on the release how long we hear it, gives us too much of its content. So what I would do is I would take envelope 3, so we can set it up individually and make it way shorter. Oops. And now you notice that we get less of this distortion in the sound. Still there, but it's now adding more clickiness to our sound. And let's make this a little bit louder. So we will find a way to make this better. So actually let's bring this a little bit up and this way down. It's not that strong. So the goal is now to get rid of this distorted sound, because we want a crystal crisp, clear plucked instrument. So let me change the shape of oscillator 3, because as you know, oscillator 3 is modulating 2, so it is a difference, this waveform versus this. You cannot really hear it now because it's so short, but it makes a difference definitely. And then I will show you this actually so you can hear the difference. So this one, versus. So they all sound different. It's, by the way, a good way if you're creating a sound and you can't really hear what it's doing, just bring it up to work with an extreme level, and then you can still bring it down, but then you know what's in there, right? So I think this one is good. This one is a little bit super edgy, just a little bit more well-rounded. And if we bring up the semitones, this is not actually shifting or pitch, it just changes oscillator 3, which affects the waveform of oscillator 2. So this now this sounds really plucky to me, like a real Plucked instrument, maybe a futuristic koto or something. So this is cool. I would go with this. Let's stick with this. And then again, now we bring it down. So it's more subtle. There's still this grittiness in the beginning, but that's fine for now, I guess. Yeah, and I think the tail is too short. There could be more of a release time. Even a little bit more. Let me bring this a little bit up. This is better. But less for the filter. The filter should close earlier than the volume. So this distortion only happens in the lower register here. If I play up here, we don't have so much of this problem. I mean, we could even look if we bring this up. Sounds too synthetic, not a good idea. So now, let's actually take a randomizer again, because it sounds pretty static. So let's take the randomizer again. It's on Turing. Let's bring it back to sample and hold. So we get only a new value each time we hit a key. Bring it back to poly. You remember from the last lesson what it does. So we have not shared values, but each key gets its own value. And now let's just add little things. So actually I would first of all bring resonance in a little bit, because Plucked instruments definitely have some resonance in their body. It resonates when you play them. And then let's bring our randomizer into play and add some random values, just slight stuff. And let's do the same. Let's work with the filter later. I think I will go for the functional thing again. Let's affect a little bit of the modulation and maybe a little bit of the fine tune. So you see, I'm just working with real small amounts of numbers, because you need to be careful with stuff like this. If I did this, you remember? We get this out of tune stuff. So I use real tiny numbers. Sounds good so far. Let's see. We could actually. No, this is too strong. Did you hear this? So we get too much inconsistency with a sound. But this so far is good. I'm still a little bit bothered by this distorted sound, but we will get rid of this later. And of course, here you could again use the drift button for what I did with the randomizer on the fine tune knob, but for the sake of this tutorial and using the randomizer, we will just apply it to the fine tune. And now sometimes I would like the cutoff filter to be a little bit more open, but you remember the problem with the randomizer is that I only get into both directions, which I don't want. So we'll go to function, to our envelope, and bring it in here. And you see it's now pulsating because it's set to loop. So we bring it to one shot, so it does what it does only one time. And you kinda can hear the speed. That's too long, I think. So we should bring it to 1/8 to see the difference. Right, makes a huge difference. It's not really audible now because the sound disappears so quick, but we want a snappy attack here. And then function 1, we have brought it now here so that it sometimes opens the filter, but not by this huge amount. We go for something subtle again, like 0.8, right? We just want to have this little human factor coming in, because you're not plucking the string each time with the same strength and at the same position, so we want to simulate this. And again, we will sidechain it with the randomizer, which means again that the randomizer will pick random values for us between our default position and this area that we just increased here each time we hit a key. And remember, by 0.50, it will really only cover the section that we have picked. So then I even think this is sometimes too bright because there's a little bit more of distortion going on. So I bring this to 0.5. So of course, playing chords sounds a little bit odd with plucked instruments. It's possible, but and now let's take care of this distortion thing, because how can we make this? This would be an option. So we would have less modulation in it at all, but by the way, before we proceed, let's add delay, because delay is really, really beautiful on plucked patches, and this is because they have such a snappy attack, and the delay just mimics this beautiful. So to show you what I mean, actually, let's bring in a little sequence, because then I can adjust it better, because this sounds not really good now. So let's do something like this. Oops. Just some random melody. Let's just see how. So you can see how this changes the rhythm just by the delay. But I'll turn this off for now because I'm not quite happy. I think it doesn't sound really good now. Sounds realistic, but it's super, super thin. So let's see. Definitely nope. This sounds like a little fly This is just not good enough. Let's bring up the volume filters a little bit. And still release is too short. Let's bring this down a little bit. So I've brought down this heavy semitone, so we are back to the normal patch for the modulation, to the normal pitch. I mean, maybe so let's take a good delay. Beautiful. This is way too long. Add a little bit of reverb, let's see. Usually reverb on Plucked is a little bit odd, but it creates a beautiful tail, as you can hear. And I say odd because a string plucked instrument is something that sounds realistic and thin and tiny, and then you have this huge room on it. It's a little bit working against the intention, but again, we are on a futuristic instrument. Actually, a synthesizer is the most modern instrument we can play, and it's completely okay if we do things that are not common. So if you make a real melody, not this crap, let's see if I can quickly improvise something cool. So let's this is even way too slow. So let's go. So just a sequence like this, right? So envelope 3 was going where? To this thing, okay. Should align the release, of course, as well. Can you hear this, how this tail came in? Like here. So we can make it a little bit smoother if we increase this. But this is too smooth because it doesn't sound plucked anymore, but it's still a difference from here to this. So it sounds still plucked. So here it's pretty metallic, the tail, so we can get rid of this here. Get this harshness a little bit out. So I think it's pretty cool. Like we have this bouncing delay now, we have the reverb with a little bit of room. Can get a little bit rid of this super edgy attack. But you hear this beautiful, like, I love how it fades out now. You play it and then the right side is like mimicking this in the distance. Sounds lovely. But this is a plucked patch, right? So it's pretty smooth. We could now of course be working on it, getting it more smoother or more edgier, adding more character, grittiness, whatever you want. You could even bring distortion in, just to show you actually. So if we just take distortion a little bit. It's not really audible. So it's super audible. But I mean, what we could be doing is taking our envelope tree, the really super short one, and just add this to the attack transient in the beginning. So now with this, it sounds a little bit more aggressive. So if we turn this off, this sounds more clean, and this is a little bit, I hope you can hear the difference. It's really subtle again, but it's there. So you notice more what it does, a little bit louder. Like it's adding a little bit of this windy clickiness. Could of course go subtle again. Must not be a lot always, you know, like I always preach, these little things here and there, they add up. But now listen how beautiful our patch has become. And then there's one last thing I want to introduce with you, and this is, I don't know if you have a MIDI keyboard in front of you, but usually it looks, without these of course, looks like this with the keys and these little two wheels on the left. And we have this pitch bend wheel, which will bend the pitch as it says. So if I play a note and move this with my hand on my physical keyboard here in front of me, changes the pitch, but you can move it while you play. Of course, you can move it with the mouse as well here in Pigments, but it's more of a performance tool, something that you use while you play. And then we have this mod wheel here, which does nothing currently. It is here, so you can click here on MV for mod wheel and route it to something. So if I bring this to the filter and make a negative range like this, and I let it play now this sequence back that we had, and if I move the mod wheel now up, it will move the cutoff knob for me. Right? So instead of clicking with the mouse, because I have linked this now here to this area, -31, I can move the mod wheel and it will shift the default position for me. And you can see this by this blue area that it travels. So this knob, I mean, it doesn't move now, right? Because they didn't animate it, but usually this little line here would be now here, because we closed the filter. It's nothing different from taking this now with the mouse and bringing it down. It's just not animated, but that is what this mod wheel thing is now doing. So you can make cool filter sweeps. You can even go for something like this. But I like it more like just doing something like this, because the delay and reverb, they mimic it so well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode, this lesson, and I hope you enjoyed this patch and learned something about plucked patches, and I will see you in the next one for the basses.